All right, this is the night I get to call the order, right? Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. I'd like to call the Hopkinton Select Board meeting for March 24th, 2025 to order. And the first order of business is the election of a chair.
I will make a motion that Sabrina continue in her role as the chair, assuming that she's willing to accept
I
that
am
nomination.
willing. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous.
I'll abstain, I guess. I don't know. Do I vote for myself? I can't remember. Okay. Do we need to, is that Jeff?
That is, Jeff. I assume it is, but he declined to be promoted.
It's an interesting way to
So maybe
participate.
it's not Jeff?
So
Do we
he
need,
said he was on, but had to jump off like at 6.
Oh,
Do we need to vote to allow him to participate over Zoom?
okay.
if we can connect with them. Oh, there he is.
So I
Oh, there's-
was not Jeff, maybe. Kara, also, I abstained from voting for myself. I don't know if you caught that.
Okay, so Jeff is there. So now,
Okay. I'll move that we allow Jeff to participate via phone.
I'll second.
Okay, we have to do roll call votes. So Vicky,
Aye.
Stephen,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Hi, Jeff, you're in, whether you like it or not.
he's gone.
Wait, oh,
Maybe.
No, he's still here.
Thing.
all right. I was just about to make a motion that we nominate Stephen Whitley to be our vice chair if he's willing.
I'm willing.
Good.
Seconded.
Second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Thank you, Stephen. All right, it's a roll call vote. Jeff,
Yes.
Vicky. Aye. Stephen.
Abstain.
Okay, I'm a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for starting our meeting, Neil.
No problem.
So very excited to welcome our 2 new board members, Vicky Graham and Alyssa McCann.
It doesn't matter how you say it. It'll be fine.
McCann.
How do you say it?
It changes every day.
So we have the full board here with Jeff on Zoom and it's very exciting. So thank you guys for running and congrats on winning. And yeah, it's our first meeting as the new group. So anyone else have thoughts on our new members?
I was just giving Vicky a little rundown before the meeting that there's water and coffee right back
Mhm.
here.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But otherwise, no, welcome and yeah, look forward to being on the board with you guys.
And we do have orientation / updates for our new members later in the agenda.
Yeah, I like that that's like
Because
way
they're
far
older.
down. You're like, you have to survive the first 3/4 of the
That's right.
meeting and then we'll tell you what's going on.
That's right. Okay, so first up is points of pride.
Sure. Really just a big one. Beginning in August, we start preparing for town meeting and pretty much everything's away. So we are done and we have like 3 days before we start the next budget. But just really all the people from the department heads and the budget committee, probably way more than you could possibly name, to everyone who took part in the elections, and prepped and set up and prepared the town report and did all the things, did all the research that brings us to that point on Thursday night where people come and vote in probably the purest form of democracy there is. So it's always I still find town meeting very exciting. So I find the day after even more exciting most of the time, but it's good to be here and it took a lot of people to get here and worked hard. So just thanks to everyone.
Yeah, I echo that. It's a lot of planning, a lot of work for the budget, and then also just the sheer logistics of both the ballot voting day and town meeting day. It's a lot of people who are working, a lot of work done that people don't see. And it is always good to see people of good faith coming together to make sure our democracy functions. So I also want to say thank you to everyone and all the voters who showed up. We had better turnout than some of the years I've been on this board. So that's always a good thing. We always want more turnout. And thank you, Neil, for being part of your 16th town meeting. All right. Anyone else have points of pride? I would also say one other quick thing. Thank you to DPW for dealing with this,
Yeah.
this early spring sort of messy storm.
I would just add a thank you to Sarah and Christine for all things town meeting. As usual, they did a really, really fine job, so it's much appreciated.
There were 4 ballot votes that seemed to go flawlessly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's really
With a lot of
a tribute
planning.
to the
Concurrently.
planning.
Yeah, concurrently.
Yeah.
We could have been there a lot
Concurrent.
longer, just out of sheer logistics, because those plus SB2 require a ballot vote.
Mhm.
So, yeah, very well done by the moderator. Okay, next we have administrative approval of the consent agenda.
Can you help us understand the consent agenda?
Yes. Neil, would you like to walk?
Sure. So everything that's in the sign file is on the consent agenda.
I see.
So if you look through it and there's anything that you want taken off the consent agenda to be discussed, you certainly can do that. Largely, way back, things used to be signed, but then there wasn't a list of them anywhere. So this largely is the sign things that then this consent agenda is in the minutes. So the minutes accurately reflect everything you've signed there. And you have to approve things at a meeting. So it gets done there, except for AP and payroll manifests, which are allowed to sign out of the meeting. And so on the off weeks, you'll receive a DocuSign request to sign those. We've been doing those electronically since COVID, and that seems to work very well.
Yes.
I would add that the exemption applications, abatement requests, and yield taxes, all of these actions are recommended to us by the assessor. And that's where it says approve. So those are all recommendations that we get from the assessor, who's looked at all of these various applications.
So for instance, with the elderly exemption applications, and it has a big round number in the right-hand column, does that mean that we're suggested to approve that they are exempt from this amount of their value of their property to be taxed?
Is that the mechanics of it? Yes,
That's
that's right.
exactly
Yep.
it. And so that amount is based on age. There are 3 categories. I think it's 65 to 74, 75 to 80 or 85, and then above that. So that is set. And there's criteria. They need to meet both the income and the asset level. And Kara actually is the one who reviews all that and makes sure that they meet that criteria.
Perfect. So we don't have to dig into their list of assets or anything.
Kara is the only one that sees that. She reviews that. And then after it's approved, anything they've provided, they've either asked for it to be shredded or it gets sent back to them. We don't store any of that information here.
And then can you distinguish for me what an abatement request is?
So an exemption is something you qualify that happens before they're taxed. An abatement is an amount that was either overtaxed or for some reason it needs to be returned to them.
Okay, perfect. And then do you mind just following that and explaining the yield tax too?
Sure. Yield tax is timber tax. There's an amount, values are determined by the state based on stumpage. So you will see a intent to cut, which gets approved to allow people to cut their forest. Largely, you don't have a lot of say in that. If they've met the state requirements, you can't say they can't do it. And we have so many days to get that out. And then once they do the cut, they actually have to do what's called a report of cut, which is the amount of timber they've taken down. It comes from the mill slips, and Kara gets that and figures out based on the type of tree and where it's come from. And there's a bunch of categories in there, what their timber tax is, which is all, the rates are all set by the state.
Cool.
And what else is on here? Manifests and payroll all get reviewed in advance also. But you also get packets with everything in it. You're always welcome to see any of that if you want to see invoices. I don't know if the packet has an invoice in it, but it could. And then the last thing on here, the MS 232 is what was voted at town meeting. That's a once a year thing, and that goes to DRA. So it's the beginning of our setting our tax rate in October.
I said that some of these came from the assessor, and I should have said some of them come from Kara, so I'm sorry, Kara. Okay.
Also, we did update our elderly exemption like 2 years ago.
Last year at town meeting, in anticipation of the values going up during the 2024 reval. So at the 2024 town meeting, I think all the exemptions were doubled, the elderly and disabled.
But we revisit all the exceptions from time to time to make sure we're still in like the norm compared to other towns. Hi, thank you for asking that question. Okay. Approval of the consent agenda. I can't remember if I moved or not.
I don't think
Someone
we
did.
have. I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I'll second that. So it's a roll call vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Me?
Aye.
Oh, I thought you said,
Oh, sorry.
It's an aye. Sorry, I heard
I like to say aye.
Noted. Stephen?
Yes.
Yes, and Alyssa.
Yes.
All right, beautiful. Approval of the public meeting minutes from March 10th, 2025.
So moved.
And I will second. Any discussion on those? Okay, so Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Vicky?
Can I abstain? Because I didn't watch it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Stephen?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Alyssa?
I'm also gonna abstain.
Okay. And then we have two non-publics to approve. The first is from March 10th, 2025, session 1.
So moved, and I'll note that they are sealed.
That's what I was used to Ken.
I know, yeah.
Oh, that's not-
Second.
It's a good thing you said that.
Alright.
So on a non-public, if they're not sealed, they'll be in the information you receive in preparation of the meeting. If they're sealed, they're always in this orange folder for you to read when you get here. We don't send out sealed minutes electronically.
All right. Did you move? that
I
we
moved it.
approve?
I don't know if there was a second.
I will second.
Second.
Jeff seconds. Okay, Jeff,
Yes.
Vicky,
To abstain.
Stephen,
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Alyssa.
Abstain.
Okay. And the second set of non-public meeting minutes from March 10th, 2025.
So moved, and they are not sealed.
Thank you.
Second.
And Jeff second. All right, Jeff,
Yes.
Vicky,
Abstain.
Stephen,
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Alyssa.
Abstain.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we have no public appointments tonight, so we will move on to old business. First up is town meeting follow-up.
Yeah, town meeting was last week. Let's see, I just thought I'd try to update on anything. Bonds will start moving forward. We have started moving forward on all 3 that were approved, finishing our, it's not the application, but the information that we need to provide for the Clean Water Revolving Fund, as well as starting on the bond for the sludge removal. So that's happening. Pay by bag, I'll contact Waste Zero, which is where we get the bags. And we'll end our contract with them and have them ship any bags they have remaining, which have already been paid for here. So we would buy the bags, they warehouse them, and they coordinated with all the stores. So I'll talk to them how they want to deal with the stores, but that's effective April 1st. So and then after everything's closed out, we'll close the special revenue account, and then anything that's remaining in there will go to the general fund. Just a note that the Bates Building rental, the current lease goes through the end of July. So, and then on the land sale, I know you have in your packet lots of comments. I'm happy to answer those emails because it seemed like there was a lot of sort of misinformation out there that we probably just want to clear up. But my thought is at this point, we'll make sure we contact both abutters. There are two abutters to that and see if there's interest. We know one abutter has an interest, and then if there's only one, that it would be negotiated there, but we have an appraisal that's being paid for done. So we would have the fair market value. So, and I just note that the emails that are there, the public concern, these are landlocked pieces, so you can't get to them without going through one of two pieces of property. There can be, the other thing is that we probably should contact Conservation Commission to see exactly what easements they would like in the deed. Both the butters have land in current use, so it's not, I saw in one email that somebody was concerned that this would allow somebody to put land in current use. It doesn't, they're both already in current use, so they don't need extra acreage to meet that. I can't remember what else. And the intent of this is to eliminate the landlocked piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a comment about building housing, but I don't think that's at all the intent. There's a single family home on that lot, and I don't think there's any intention to change that. This was a subdivision that was approved and then was remerged, so there's no longer a subdivision.
And the condition of the article was that it would be merged with whatever abutter it's sold to, so that if they wanted to develop it further, they'd have to go back to the planning board to get approval to subdivide it again.
That's right.
Yeah.
So really it does eliminate that landlocked piece of land.
Yeah.
I think that was all the follow-up other than, well, I guess budgets are on here other than that. Unless other people have questions. I thought actually town meeting went very smoothly, extremely well. The recording came out very well, the video, sometimes it hasn't, it's good.
Is that on the town website?
It is on the town website. You can look under select board minutes and it's there.
Okay.
You can also go to the town meeting page where everything is listed and the video is right there. A link to the video is there.
All right, next we have pending items / priorities review.
Oh, yeah. So, sort of thinking about getting stuff done I want to get done. And I want to hear what you want me to get done. Largely, I think my priorities are writing down as much as practical, sort of organizational data, and then organizational data items, the office committees, making sure that they're set. The budget committee is going to meet April 9th for their first meeting. And then assuring coverage of duty kind of during the transition. And getting going all the projects that were voted at town meeting, all the bonds, and making sure those are well underway. Those are in pretty good. Wrapping up some pending enforcement items and then at least having ready to go tax deeded properties for sale, whether that will happen or not, but I have everything in place for that. So those are kind of what I was seeing as my priorities. I don't know what other things you would like done.
Can
You can
you,
withdraw your resignation.
What was that?
Withdraw
You
your
can withdraw your
resignation.
resignation.
Yeah. First item of business.
That wasn't on my list.
It's weird.
It's been, I will say for the record, the response has been really kind of overwhelming over the last couple weeks, so I am appreciative of that.
So what about, meeting with like department heads? Is that sort of scheduled out, like making sure everybody's feeling okay and,
Yeah, I sort of put that under assuring coverage of duties and where we divide things up and what's covered.
okay.
Do you have that pending priorities? Is that in a document that you can share with us, Neil? Once you sort of finish sort of making the list.
Yeah, I have it
Okay.
here. I can't remember if I posted it or not. This might just be not my notes, but I certainly can post it.
Yeah, okay, that might be helpful for us to have.
And if there are other things, we'll get to I think somewhere on here is kind of an update on the search. Yeah, I guess that's next. So I'll also help where I can with
Okay.
that. So
Should we roll into that?
wait,
Sure.
can I ask some questions?
Please do.
Could you help me understand what pending enforcement items means?
we've got a few zoning violations that we're working through trying to get enforced.
And then can you help me understand what tax deeded properties for sale means?
So we have several properties that the town has tax deeded, and a couple of the, let's see, so if you don't pay your taxes, you get liened, which means the town has a lien on your property. And then 2 years and 1 day after the property is liened, the town can deed it, the tax collector is supposed to deed it. So when those deeded properties are coming up, generally the tax collector will meet with the board. And either they're deeded or the board decides that they don't want to accept the deed for some reason, maybe I don't want to say there's a nuclear waste dump, but there might be something hazardous that the town doesn't want to take on any liability or something, because there aren't any of those in town. But so that's what that happened. These are properties that have already been deeded, that some of which we have, we've worked agreements with the owners that they're purchasing to buy them back, and others that just are ready to be sold. So they would be auctioned off, basically.
So if you were to cut a deal to try and get your property back, do you buy it back for your back taxes owed
Yes.
plus interest or something?
Less.
There's a statutory formula that
Okay.
you have to come up with, yeah.
And if we sell a property and we sell it, we only keep what is owed to us plus that exact amount. And if we receive more than, and plus all our costs, if we receive more than that, that goes back to the previous owner. We don't keep anything beyond
That's right.
what is due to the town.
Thank you.
Transition update, we have, as of today, 17 applicants.
That's great.
My only regret is that we didn't have the deadline sooner than April 10th. But so I have, my suggestion is that, so I think I included in the packet what the board had approved last time, which is the timeline. So what would happen next is form a department head committee, which would do initial reviews, initial interviews, and then recommend a candidate to the board. But not a candidate to the board, 2 or 3 probably candidates to the board. And certainly the board can get all the resumes if you want to look through them all to see if there's any that didn't make it through that process that you might want to see. So my suggestion would be that we start that process kind of right away, removing those, and we can start reading out and interviewing in order to do that. So my recommendation for that is that there's a 6-member department head committee. And most of these I've talked to, a couple of them I have not yet. But Kelly, our finance director, is collecting them all. She's sort of spearheading this. And then if we add town clerk, tax collector Christine Johnson, police chief TJ Hennessy, fire chief Jeff Yale, DPW director Dan Blanchett, and recreation director Paula Simpkins be the 6 that review those and move to the next to bring to you.
Is there an eligibility criteria that they're working off of? So when they're reviewing resumes, yes, like there's the job description that says, here's what's ideal, but is there a impartial list of qualifications they're using to review resumes as they come in?
So
Or they would be using.
largely those do come from the job description, what the minimum qualifications are. We have a variety of people, which is kind of interesting, with some with municipal experience, some with not. So
I guess why I'm asking is when you have 6 different people reading the same job description, but then looking at the resumes themselves, you can bring in a lot of your own bias as to how it reads or what it means. And I wonder about having it spelled out to be like, for the technical requirements versus here are areas where there's a lot of leeway, and it's obviously how a job description reads versus what a committee is looking at can be very different. And then I was also curious what the actual interview questions were. Like, what is that process? Is it a phone interview followed by an in-person committee interview, or what does that look like?
generally it's an in-person interview. And actually I'm working with them on the questions because I have
Awesome.
pretty standard questions we've used for a long time. I also have questions I've used in interviewing for this position in other towns that I was on the committee to serve. I think as far as they go through the resumes and then they have a discussion on all of them. And I think that's when they share their wide range of views. I have not found, because there's unique things I think it really is very subjective all the way through. So I think it's hard to put and say, okay, we're going to create a matrix that will determine this. I think if you read through them, it becomes clear the ones that probably need to come out and then what's left. And I think you interview, and resumes and interviews can be very different. So,
Absolutely.
and you don't want to lose somebody
Yeah.
who may be not have necessarily the top resume, but might be the best fit.
I was gonna say, because resumes are what they are.
Yeah.
Right? But that someone's ability to write a resume does not in any way, shape, or form showcase their ability to do the job itself. And I am curious, having never hired in your field before, is it common to have sample tasks or sample problems or things that they work through in real time or on their own and bring forward as a way to demonstrate the ability to handle your very complex position? Because obviously the question of like, talk to me about your strengths or your weaknesses may not unveil someone who can do the juggling act that you do.
I think that's one thing the department heads bring, because they all have their expertise in different areas that I'm certainly not an expert in police or fire, but I certainly could answer a lot of questions on both police and fire. And I think that's one of the perspectives they'll bring. They'll also look a lot at how sort of that human interaction is going to be a big part of, I think, in that first round, how that qualified, but also a good fit. And then I think the board, when you all get to that point, you'll be doing both those things. How does this person fit in with the department heads and with the board and with the town? And are they qualified to do a wide range of different things?
Can I jump in just for a second, Alyssa?
Yeah.
Because I have to jump off and I just wanted to say, if I had my druthers, I'd re-advertise and say that resume's got to be in by Monday. If we've got 17, keeping it open for another week, I'm not sure that's going to get us anything helpful. If we could re-advertise it and shorten up the application period, I think that would work to our advantage. Because the best advantage would be if we could pick someone and they could start before Neil left.
But from a practical perspective, there's nothing stopping us from starting the process, I guess.
Right.
So-
If you're good with this group, my suggestion is they start right away.
Yeah.
Jump
Sounds-
off. I hope to be back soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Wait, did he see his leave?
Yeah.
Bye, Jeff.
He said he'll come back soon.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
My last question, I actually, I can't promise that.
you could
I'm
ask.
sorry,
as many-
I can't promise that.
This is good.
As the department heads are reviewing the resumes, would it be possible to capture their thoughts as to why they moved something forward versus didn't? So that when we are looking at it, when we understand their thinking, it'll make us more informed interviewers down the line to understand what it is they were looking for.
So when they finish, I think that group needs to come and meet with you and present their top candidates and why the other people aren't. I think if there's anything I've learned in the past, as I've tried to relay from committees to the board, you really need the whole committee to sit down with the whole board, I think, and have that discussion. I think that's really important to
And the
share.
only reason, and I love the conversation, the only reason I ask for like their written thoughts is because there can be a large span between when you initially review something and having those notes to go back to be like, wait, why did I say no to this? And also just for different processing styles. So I know for me, if I'm getting all the information verbally at once, I may not catch all of it.
harder.
Versus if I'm able to pre-read it, then I'll be able to follow them along easier.
I'm also trying to balance, they're doing their jobs, taking on
100%.
this and how they can best do that.
And
So,
absolutely don't want them to have to write a book report.
Yeah.
2 sentences, like,
on each, because I know when I interview, I keep notes always and go back. to
absolutely.
Remind myself, sometimes it doesn't make sense to anybody but me, but so.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and in talking to my new position, Conval, they would love it if I had a few days before I transitioned over to sort of learn some things, but they're also happy to have me, once I'm there, come back and work with the person, however much or little you would want, whatever's helpful for Hopkinton,
That's generous of them.
to do that,
Yeah.
back a little bit back and forth, that it
That's very
seemed
kind.
like
Yeah.
I would go there not as an employee for them, and I would come back here not as an employee for you.
and are
but
you comfortable with that?
I am,
it's-
I am. I certainly want to help the new person as much as possible. I also don't want to step on their toes or be in their way either. So
Yeah.
however that works, but there may be a time where 2 hours with their list of questions of where do I find this? And how do I get into this?
This would be hugely helpful to whomever comes in.
It really is. And I'm really trying to, I have a folder of passwords that I am really getting organized so that it all
Should we get
makes
a one
sense.
password account to save all of your
So,
passwords into?
Well, we do have one, but. So,
So you'll let us know in terms of like, if you decide like, every Friday, I'm gonna go over to Conval or something like
they
that.
were, yeah, and I'm not sure what that was. They were talking about that a little more, but if I know that, I also have tons of vacation time or something, but they would appreciate that, and as well as that may be very helpful to be able to come back and spend a day here or a half day here, a couple weeks or a month in after there's a lot more questions. And I'm always happy to be available to answer questions. And
So do you need then us to say yes on the 6-member
yes,
committee? Okay.
yes.
Sounds like a good mix to me.
That was the goal, to get a mix, some people from this building
Yeah.
and people from other
That's a
buildings.
good
And
group.
I think
Really
we've
good.
covered most of the buildings.
Yeah. Any objections to them?
No,
No,
no
okay.
objections.
All right.
As long as they're willing.
I've talked to 4 out of 6.
And the other two will learn from this video.
And now if they're
It'll be
watching,
great.
they will know that. That's right. I think that's it on that.
So you're gonna touch base with them and then will you start looking? Will they start looking at the resumes like?
Right away,
Okay,
like
right.
this week,
Okay,
I
good.
think.
Could-
Kelly was actually off last week and we had 7 last Monday and then she was off and then the rest came in today. Or I got them today. So, yeah, and it's a pretty wide variety, which is good to see.
Could we see them now? I mean, not in this moment, but like, could we also? Is it a pain to email them or like, is there a central place we could?
I know we should be able to put them together so you can see them.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because in case anything jumps out at us, we have that top of mind. And if there's a mismatch between us and the 6-person committee,
Yeah,
it'd be helpful to see the full scope of resumes.
So all things being equal, how many people do you think should be brought in for in-person interviews? Just to make sure we're doing our due diligence
That's-
without overwhelming the department heads.
that's a good question. It may be 6 to 8,
Yeah, 6 to 8.
possibly.
Yeah.
Say maybe we wait and see what is recommended
Yeah.
for how many we bring in.
Okay.
Cause if that's a really strong pool of applicants, then it's a
Yeah.
bigger number. But
Mhm.
if it's not, then maybe.
And it may, after they go through their first round, they may say, oh, there's 4 really good ones, or there's 3 that seem to rise
Yeah.
well to the top. So you really only need 1 really good one.
It's true.
You just gotta make sure.
This is like, I was just curious, has anyone from within the town departments applied for the role? Expressed an interest?
There's no internal candidate.
Okay.
That I can't say. Nobody was interested.
Not yet.
I ruined it for them.
When we're still open.
Oh, good, okay. All right, can we move on to new business? First up is the 2025 Select Board assignments. This is always fun.
I assume you put them all in a hat and then we pull.
That's right.
Is
So
Jeff
nice.
on the Zoom?
That means we get to assign him.
To whatever.
Oh, we shouldn't skip it and come back to it.
Well, I think we've got a good sense of our existing.
The first 2 we
So
filled
we
in.
check those off.
Such progress already.
What are the existing ones? Where are folks right now?
Good question. Well, Ken was budget, Thomas was planning, Stephen is.
Jeff was planning and you were the alternate.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Thomas.
Had been planning.
Sorry, that was top of mind, because of his bio. Okay, I didn't realize I was the alternate. I have not attended any meeting.
I think he's gone. He's locked out.
Stephen is the EDC.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to write it down. So you said Jeff's the planning board?
Jeff is
Yeah,
planning.
okay.
Stephen's EDC. I am open space. Waste reduction.
Jeff,
Yeah.
Jeff.
And he attends.
Highway Safety Committee has not met. I believe I am technically this is the year.
Maybe that's one of the
This
things
is-
I should do before I leave.
Let's put this
That's
under
been on my
priority.
list for a while.
Because it used to be, it was the roads committee, right?
Yes.
And then it hadn't met for a long time, and then we decided to like resurrect it as the Highway Safety Committee. And we have talked a lot about trying to have a meeting. We just have not been able to actually schedule one. So we gotta work on that.
Yes, it has the word highway and safety in it, but what does this committee actually do?
Well, that's a good question. Since we never actually met. We didn't have our-
They have a charge.
We do have a charge, okay.
Maybe put that in
Well-
your next packet because I don't,
I will just give a couple practical examples. We might discuss certain intersections in town. For like my own sort of personal one that I've been talking about for years is by the fire station where it's the three-way stop.
Mhm.
And I feel like for people who aren't familiar with town, I've had a lot of people not realize that there's not a stop as you're going
Yeah.
north.
It's the one that the young, the college students came and
They were
presented
like,
on.
yes. And so I've talked to Chief Hennessy at various times about like putting up a sign that's like oncoming traffic does not stop, that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
that's like something this committee could potentially tackle, but
Mhm.
there's other things as well.
If someone was passionate about sidewalks, which committee would that live in?
I think that's highway safety,
That would be.
Highway and EDC a little bit,
a little bit.
but yeah, probably highway. So put a pin in that if you're interested. If you're, you might bring the new energy we need to have that committee actually meet.
So currently, we have submitted a TAP grant, which is an 80-20 match for sidewalks from Maple Street School to Fountain Square and from Fountain Square to East Pennacook Road, in there. We had a great application. We had done this 2 years ago too. We came in third in the regional planning. So the likelihood of getting it may not be huge, but that is moving forward. So we do have conceptual plans and costs to do those sidewalks. The Fountain Square intersection is in the state 10-year plan and is scheduled for 2030, maybe 2032
I think it 2030 at the earliest, I
at
think.
the earliest. Maybe engineering starts then.
Now, I love that you have this all in your head, but where would I go to read this? Short of like sitting you down and asking you all these questions.
So lots of this is posted in different places depending on who did it. The 10-year plan, EDC, well, yeah, EDC worked on this, so that's really in their minutes a lot. We're also in the state 10-year plan, just to note, beginning in 2025, believe it or not, it's here to redo the 101 Maples 101. The 202 Maple Street intersection by Dunkin' Donuts. So that's going to be a roundabout, and that work is scheduled for 25, 26. So that will begin relatively soon. And EDC got that moved up in the plan.
And because I remember Anna talking about this a lot to the small businesses in Kentucky. With that role still open, and I know this is not what we're talking about right now, but is that role still open or did that role go away or?
The
Sorry, Anna, I know works a lot.
The
on
EDC.
director, Anna.
Yeah, that position is still open.
We haven't really discussed that at length yet.
Is it posted somewhere?
It is not. I think there's going to be discussion there has been discussion as to what that position should be.
Yeah.
The best path forward.
That's
Yeah.
on your priorities.
I guess that is on my priority
Yeah,
list.
to give that some thought and make a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've made a few suggestions.
Mm-hmm. So really quick, Energy Committee was Ken. And Housing Committee, that was Thomas.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
got that right. Okay.
No, that was you. No.
Okay, so I would think perhaps Jeff makes sense to keep him doing planning if he's willing.
I've not heard him say that he was unwilling to
Okay.
remain on the planning board and also waste reduction.
Okay, so we'll verify. Stephen, Economic Development.
I'm happy to retain that role. If I've needed to shift elsewhere, that's okay as
Mhm.
well.
Okay. So I'm happy to stay on open space unless, again, yeah, if we need to shift things around. Obviously budget is big. And then there's highway, energy and housing. Oh yeah, Jeff's waste reduction. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe Vicky would be interested in budget since you have so much budget experience. I'm just gonna throw
Oh,
that
do
out
you have
there.
budget?
I have been on the budget committee for 3 cycles.
Sounds exciting.
From the Hopkinton Village Precinct.
That's right.
So I'd be happy to keep it, but I would also be happy to try something else if somebody else was interested in it. I think it would be the least heavy lift for me, because I watched Ken go through the process 3 times, and however, I'm definitely interested in a lot of this different stuff. And so, but it's an easy lift in terms of conceptualizing it, but it's actually a big lift in terms of how much meetings you have to go to and how much hours of reading and presenting and stuff is
Yes.
in it. So,
That is real.
so I feel as though it's fine if you guys would like me to take that on, but I'm open to discuss it if somebody else is interested.
Are you interested, Alyssa, in budget committee?
I mean, not particularly, but I will go. It's joy and love in my heart.
Because I would rather not, and I think Stephen feels the same
I
way.
do, if you're willing, it sounds like very able, that would
Seems like
really
a
be
good
lovely.
fit. And you've got that
Fine.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can we come back to budget for a second? So I want to talk about the other ones, Vicky,
Yep.
that you were interested in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, I can do it.
Yep.
I will be honest, budget is not my strong point. Of the many strong points I do have, I would not rank budget in the top 75,
Uh-huh.
but I will do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're putting your name in there.
So,
I'm just giving you guys the truth here. I'm just telling you.
so without, okay, so just backing up a little bit, my husband asked me, what are you signing up for with the select board? And I figured in terms of regular meetings, extra work sessions, and then public hearings, that it's like 50 meetings a year.
I think it's less than
It's
that.
less.
Way
So
less.
yeah, so but it's 26,
32.
right? Only 32?
Yeah.
Because we meet weekly for a month.
1 month.
Yeah, there's really just
Okay.
2 extra meetings.
And we do the public hearings as part of our regular meeting schedule.
Okay,
as
so they
much
don't
as we
get put on a
possibly-
Wednesday or
Nope.
anything like
As
that?
much as we can possibly help it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cause like that.
SB2, we had
I
to
was
have a
just gonna say
special,
the SB
only
one was on a
because of
different
the
day.
required deadlines. It
Okay.
was Because of school vacation, there wasn't a meeting within there, so one. had to
Okay,
be
got it.
added.
That's an
So
outlier.
then for some of these other ones, is it just anticipated that it's a monthly meeting regardless?
Depends on the board, like the Highway Safety Committee, for instance,
Has not met.
has not met. And so that one, no additional work.
I believe energy's on every other month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
energy is not on every month.
And I would say like open space, it's sort of intended to be monthly, but there are many months if we don't have something on the agenda.
Uh-huh,
The chair will say, do we need to meet?
okay,
And so, I mean, I would say that does not meet monthly. And I don't know about energy and housing if they meet super regularly.
Energy's every other month now. Housing probably will be every month. It's been a little sporadic, but I think they're kind of at that point where they need to meet at least every.
Okay.
So Vicky, if you weren't on budget, what would you be interested in doing?
probably waste reduction or the housing committee.
So.
But again, seniority rules. I really feel that way, honestly. So I'm not trying at all to like, for instance, push Jeff off of waste reduction or,
I do think if you were to ask which of you would want
that's
gosh.
more than I can chew, honestly. If, if the budget committee is one of the heavier lifts, then
And I think it is
Yeah, I think
probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ken did budget and energy, but I think if you were to take on budget, like I could take on something else, for example.
Okay.
that is not necessarily,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think budget stands out as like, obviously very
When,
important.
do they meet on Wednesdays? Was that it?
At the budget committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesdays, yeah, and I really don't mind keeping it. I just wanna, I just wanna make sure that I'm not just sort of the obvious choice without discussion. But I mean, I enjoy the budget committee. I really like all my friends on the budget committee.
That you're willing to do that, like you're not taking anything away that I really secretly like hoping to get, so that's totally fine.
Yeah. Now, and you said your other interest would be waste reduction / possibly housing.
Yeah, sure,
So,
exactly.
I mean, one thing, these aren't like, permanent and set in stone. So it
Sure.
could be if you were interested, like, I don't think waste reduction meets,
They meet monthly on the third Thursday of the month.
okay. And do you know if they're meeting regularly?
They are.
Okay.
Do they meet in the evening?
They do.
At the library.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
In the cute
one
little room.
thought is like, if you really were interested in one of those, because budget, well, it becomes very time intensive at a certain point, but I think the
Yeah.
rest of the year you meet, but it's not quite as.
Yeah, so it's a monthly meeting, except there's usually a summer hiatus,
Mhm.
and then during, January and February, it could be
Yeah.
every week.
Now, if you wanted to do like take on waste reduction, for example, I suspect Jeff would probably gladly give that to someone else who was interested. If, for example, if you wanted to do that and try it, and if you felt like it was too many meetings, then we could shift things around. Or like I'm an alternate apparently for planning board. I've not been called up as an alternate. But like, I don't have an alternate on open space. If I can't make it, I catch up with folks after the meeting, that kind of thing.
Mhm, yeah.
But we could, if you wanted to take something else on, I'd be happy to like be an alternate, or we can always revisit it as.
Sure, that's another good thing is that, we could just have this almost on as an agenda item every 6 months or something to see if we
Sure, yeah.
want to shuffle
It
around.
doesn't have to be a
Oh, yeah.
static.
I won't speak for the select board members lift on the waste reduction committee, but they're lovely meetings. They generally keep them to 90 minutes. And I think they're really enjoyable personally.
Do you
I do-
want to be the person?
No, because I can't do Thursday nights.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's the one night Luke asks for, so I say yes.
I will say open space is a wonderful committee. They usually meet on Wednesday evenings, and I'm happy to pass it along if one of you is interested in that. It is very well run. They work in conjunction with the Conservation Commission, and so I would say it's not heavy lifting.
Mhm.
So happy to talk about, if one of you is interested in that.
Do you want to see if Jeff is back
And Jeff, he was on waste reduction and was at his
and planning?
and planning. Sorry.
Mhm.
I'm happy to take housing.
Oh.
Yeah, I would love to be on housing. I'm very passionate
Yeah.
about people having places to live.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
So,
sounds good. Oh,
Just
yeah.
to point out, they
Yeah.
meet on Thursday nights,
no. And is it once a month or is it
generally.
what time?
5:30?
5:30.
Oh, I can do 5:30. The waste reduction meets at 7.
Oh, okay.
Waste
Yeah.
reduction.
So you could
Luke
do.
plays soccer at 9 PM,
Oh.
which is a ridiculous time to play soccer. But it's the one thing he does that is for himself. So it doesn't have to go in the minutes, but it can, that Luke Simon is dedicated to his 9 PM soccer.
Kara, did you get that?
Most important thing in this meeting.
Okay, well, that would be great. And I'm gonna put just for note taking here, Vicky as a maybe for budget.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm gonna write myself down
So-
for it.
Okay, so that leaves,
Special-
so Jeff is still, I think he could stay waste reduction. Highways.
Highway
unless
safety and energy.
Unless, Vicky, if you wanted to try taking on waste reduction.
Well, no, why don't we leave Jeffrey as, and I'll just go if I can go.
Okay.
Because the third Thursday is also when the Hopkinton Village Precinct meets, and technically, I am still, we don't meet until Thursday to roll over our assignments, so I am currently obligated to be somewhere else on the third Thursday of the month.
Okay, so do we know when energy meets? Did you already say that?
Energy meets Thursday night
Man,
at,
I mean, I could
Make
probably
Luke
do
do soccer
energy.
leagues.
Oh, because
they don't
Ken, because it was
really-
Ken.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, doesn't sound like they're meeting very frequently.
Yeah.
Does that excite you
I would
intellectually?
totally do it, actually, yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Seems like a good fit.
That's a good committee.
So highway safety, I don't know if.
There's no meeting set.
If you're interested in trying to like breathe life into that, that's wonderful, or I will continue to say we will make an effort to try to actually meet. But so I'm happy to keep that on my list.
Now, is
But-
it because for highway safety, the select board member is the chair? Because I know that for many of these, the select board member is not the chair, right?
I don't even know if we got it.
And so
Yeah,
is the thing that this just needs like,
The committee had never met to elect a chair.
got it.
Are
It was
there,
truly a logistical thing, like we emailed about meeting and then it's like all of a sudden 6 months goes by and it's like, oh, we're in budget season, like we'll pick this up after
Yeah.
that. And then it's like, oh, we're in town meeting season, we'll pick it up after that. So
I mean, I'm happy to put my name next to it. I would want to just like double check what the charge of the committee is.
mhm.
And
There's-
this probably,
You have time during the day? Does that work better?
Well, that's true, because that was a problem for me, is I had a lot of trouble trying to meet during the day.
oh, they meet during the day?
Well, they,
Oh,
well,
Well, they
could.
haven't, but that there are several department
That-
heads and it's just easier for them
Right.
to meet during
Forgot.
the.
Yes, I do have that flexibility with my work schedule
Oh.
to meet during the day.
We could try it, and again, I'm happy to.
If you wouldn't mind being a mentor on that would be great, because it's like, yes, let me join the select board and then let me kick
Well-
the committee, having never run one
Well,
before.
having, since I've never
Um,
actually gotten the meetings to happen, I will happily stay involved, but perhaps this will result in the meetings being scheduled. That
I'll
would be a good.
Commit to getting them scheduled and getting the charge to people.
Because I forgot about the during the day challenge. That is part
And
of.
I can do during the day.
I'm gonna say
But
Alyssa slash me.
that did, and this is related to, the committee appointments that had the lists of everyone's names of who's currently on them and the open positions. And what it made me wonder is what would it look like, or have we done something where we remind the town about these various committees and what they do and what spots are open to get folks reinvested? Because I do feel like to date, what I've seen is more one-off asking of individuals to join committees and less an education push to let folks know here are the committees. This is how they participate. These are volunteer, non-elected positions as a way for folks to get involved.
or to know when a meeting is happening that they would just want to attend to?
It could be that too, but
Yeah.
my thought was just the voter guide was amazing. And I'm not saying Neil has to do this, any of us could do this, but put together something that's like, here are the committees and these are the ones that have these open positions. And if you want to be involved and pushing it out through Facebook, through the various Hopkinton Facebook groups, which is where most folks tend to find stuff. I feel like they don't tend to go to the town website. They wait for folks to bring things over to those groups. Because I saw a lot of yellow and I was like, hey, I think we could fix this because I know a lot of folks who are like, how do I get involved? But then they get to the town website and they kind of fall down.
So just to explain this, the yellows often are people that are currently serving whose term is expiring. So what we've
Yeah.
done in the past, and we certainly can put more out, is the board looks to determine if they want to ask people to continue. And then we fill those in and then we advertise the positions that are still open, which is much fewer.
Oh, yeah,
than-
yeah,
than the-
absolutely.
Just to explain how that.
But I also think we'd want to build a runway for new folks to get involved by raising awareness of the charges, their priorities, when they meet, and how members of the public can show up and be a part of it, even if they're not a voting committee member. Which was how I participated in the Waste Reduction Committee. It wasn't even as like a committee member. I just got to show up, talk a lot, and then not vote on anything because I wasn't a committee member. But then I also did notice a lot of overlap in the various committees. I didn't know if that was by design or simply by who was willing to serve.
The latter.
Because in some cases it could be by design, right? Because you want to have some coordination, but that also got me thinking, how do we get more folks involved? Because you never want to have a single point of failure if one person is suddenly unable, and then you have a bunch of committees that don't have a person anymore. That's for neither here nor there. Neil, what I'm offering is if I can be helpful in creating something to put out there into social media, I would love to help with that. Because I think these committees are the things that make lots of little stuff happen that add up to big stuff in the town.
I think
And
you're
I'd like to
right.
see more people get involved. That's all.
The voter guide was actually Vicky's idea. And believe it or not, it was all the same information we've usually used, but we changed the format, which seemed to be a big hit. So that was,
Design is
so
everything.
that was good.
People were flipping back and forth the
Yeah.
whole time.
So that worked.
Well done, guys. Well done.
Yeah, it was really good.
Were there any boards that still don't have someone? Sorry, because I moved us, but
Are you doing open space?
I'm
still?
happy to stick with open
You want me to
space.
read through the list I have just to make, I also want to
Yeah.
confirm that what I have is correct. So we have Chair, Sabrina Chair, Stephen Vice Chair, Vicky on Budget Committee, Jeff on Planning Board, Stephen on EDC, Sabrina on Open Space, Jeff Waste Reduction, Alyssa on Highway Safety Committee, Stephen on Energy, and Alyssa on Housing.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Mhm.
So,
I'm interested, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I'm interested because it seems as though and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though the Economic Development Committee, the Planning Committee, and the Housing Committee have interwoven goals. So do they ever, like, I don't know what the right word is, meet jointly?
It's a good question.
I can tell you that I don't recall, and I've been on the EDC for 8 years. And I don't recall the EDC ever jointly meeting with, no, it's not true. I think we did last year, 2 years ago, there were some zoning amendments that we were in favor of, and I believe we did attend a planning board meeting to speak to those. But that was an outlier
Mhm.
in my time on the EDC. There are a lot of members who are on all those boards, and so rather than hold joint meetings, I
They
think.
liaise.
Exactly, because it's harder to schedule a joint meeting and it's much easier to just have those concurrent members just give updates and be the liaisons, as you mentioned.
Like tomorrow night, I know members, the chair of both planning and EDC, and some members are meeting together to. I'm not exactly sure what they're talking about, but I know they're meeting to work through some things.
I think that's right. Yep.
And I think that Housing Committee and the Planning Board have a joint meeting scheduled for June at this point. And they'll have probably more joint meetings as the Housing Committee
Yeah.
does their work and prepares for the Planning Board to take over the any proposed zoning amendments. They would have to them by September, but there would be joint meetings in between to get to that point.
Does the Housing Committee have an ongoing role, or is it the kind of thing where they've, hired a consultant, learned what they needed, made suggestions, and now they pass the baton?
So they have a consultant now that's working for it's the HOP 2 and 3 grant. But their charge is ongoing, not I should give you, I'm gonna make lists of things that you should have available, and really all the charges,
That would be useful, yeah.
the ones that we
Good idea.
have. Some of the committees are statutory, but any that we formed have had charges.
So, do we normally go through this meeting?
The
Or-
appointment list.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we usually have you check in with the existing
That was my memory.
people.
Yeah,
And
I
then we
think
revisit
the
once if they're
existing,
not.
if you
Yeah.
want me to reach out.
Do appreciate your comments about trying to get people informed and interested, so we can definitely talk more about that, but perhaps we can move forward with just checking with the people who are currently involved to see if they're still interested.
Absolutely. Don't want to discourage people who are currently putting in work from stopping that work. What I mean is building a pipeline
Yeah.
towards future leaders and
Yeah.
involvement.
Yeah.
So when it says, just as an example here, Patricia LaPree's term expires on waste reduction in 2027. When in 2027?
This time in twenty
March, April?
twenty-seven. Yeah.
Okay, and that's true for all
Right,
of these?
everybody, because I think all of these are appointed by the select board. So once the new board is in place,
Hmm.
that work begins. And everyone who's appointed serves until their replacement is sworn in
Mhm.
by law. So
Why do some of the committees have select board alternatives and some do not?
Some are required by law, like the planning board, for instance.
budget committee is by law.
Yep.
Then what is the Joint Loss Management Committee? I
That
was thinking
is,
a gas based off of the group, but
that's the safety committee. And that is required by law to meet 4 times a year to review. They review accident reports, they review, generally they rotate buildings and do a safety check in the town building that they meet in. So we actually a year ago went through a New Hampshire labor audit. And so we know we've done everything for that, so it's in good shape. But that's what they do.
But we don't have to install a member on that.
No,
Right.
that's made up of half management and half employees, also by statute or by decree from the Labor Department.
Can you just quickly tick through the ones that are governed by statute? Conservation Commission, right? They're not governed.
There's no select board rep though, on the Concom. Is that what you mean?
Oh, I just mean like, aren't they, we did, like, which committees?
Oh,
did
they're
the
statutory.
town- Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
the town.
At town meeting voted the Conservation Commission in
Yeah.
at some point and
We
determined their
don't have
membership.
that. Why is there no select board?
Generally, they are not.
Oh, they just don't have a select board person, okay. But they are, so we voted them into existence, but it is governed by state law.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Economic development, we
We created that.
created.
It's not statutory.
Yeah.
Energy is not statutory. Highway is not statutory. Housing is not statutory. Human services is statutory, I believe. Is that right? Neil?
I don't think so, because we
Make that
formed
up.
that
Okay.
at some point.
Ballot clerks.
and the ballot clerks don't have a term expires date.
Actually all expire in, I believe it's August of 2026. They're appointed for 2 years. The parties can recommend, I think, 2 people, and then the board appoints the rest. We sort of hadn't been doing that, so that got cleaned up in the last year.
Okay.
Joint loss is statutory.
All right.
Open space is something we created.
Yeah,
Planning board is statutory. Rec committee is,
Just to note, open space was established by town meeting when the standby bond was approved. It was part of that warrant article.
and then rec committee is something we created.
okay. So it's really
There's not many.
conservation and planning board governed by statute.
And joint loss, he said.
Well,
So
not
those,
all the
so by
CBA,
governed by
CBA,
statute that,
Right.
oh,
ZBA is
Zoning on here.
very.
Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay, zoning. That's also statute.
so by governed by statute, you mean like we must have that?
Not necessarily must have it, because the Conservation Commission, you don't
We
have
don't.
to have, but if you adopt the statute, then it governs the membership.
Right.
I
So
see.
it's not something that
Got it.
we have a lot of discretion over. But planning board, I think, yeah, that's right. Planning board, we decide if we appoint or elect. Our town meeting does.
And we appoint.
Right.
What about the Town Records Archive Committee? Is that?
I think we created that.
created that?
Yeah.
Did, although I think it might be required, I think it is required by statute. Actually,
33A? No.
I think it is. Actually, we haven't met since COVID, actually. We met before that. And sort of went through the whole archives at the Bates Building and did all that, so.
So, like, Conservation Commission doesn't have a select board rep. So for example, could we decide that like, I'm just throwing this out there, like waste reduction or open space no longer needs one, or is it
That
part of we could just decide that we don't need a rep?
open space, we'd have to look at the charge at
I
the,
was just curious, because it's
vote.
interesting, conservation doesn't have one.
Well, the statute says how many members you can have in the
Mhm.
Conservation Commission, and so that's kind of limiting.
Mhm.
and energy, you voted with the updated charge to have a select board member on there. But that was your vote. You could change that.
Is planning board required to under the statute, do you know, to have a select board?
It is.
Okay,
I think if you want to have subdivision approval, you have to have a planning board.
but
Um,
we are also required to have a select board
It-
member on it.
The select board has a representative. It doesn't have to be a select board member.
Yeah.
It would
Ah,
be
I
somebody
see. Or
you,
rep, okay.
you chose.
All I'm saying is that as you're thinking about an orientation packet for the next you, it might be an orientation to this, because I could imagine, I mean, as I'm learning all of this, I'm like, oh, like this is a lot to manage. And I think you are naturally the fiber that connects
Mhm.
all of this.
Yes.
You do it beautifully. Okay.
Okay, so Neil will reach out to people who are currently participating. And we'll go from there. All right, thank you to everyone for walking through that. Are we good to move on to the financial update? Right.
Sure.
Ken's still on, so he can live his favorite moment of the meeting.
All right, you received the revenue and expense through February. Generally, we do that. We give you both the summary and the detail by line, so you have that. I'll walk a little through revenue, some of which we've talked about, like one was explain yield tax, which we've already done. That's the timber tax. So under revenue, land use change tax, LUCT, is listed. That is the penalty when somebody removes land from current use. That is billed. It's 10% of the fair market value on the day it comes out of current use. And the town general fund receives 50% of that money and the Conservation Commission receives 50%. So that's what that
We
is.
voted on that, right?
Yes, it used to be, I think it was either 70-30 or 80-20. And then it was, the conservation amount was increased to
Mhm.
50-50. The town meeting has the authority to set that percentage
Mhm.
from 0 to 100 going to the Conservation Commission. Yield tax is the timber tax. We went through that a little bit. Just to note, room and meals tax, which is a large amount, it's 580,000 we've budgeted for, although I understand the legislature is considering cutting the amount coming to municipalities. There's legislation on that. That comes in December. So it always looks like we're running way behind on revenue because 580,000 is a huge chunk to not come in until the very end. The other one I wanted to note is flood control. This is money, we've budgeted 222,000. That is money we receive from the state, which they receive from Massachusetts, to reimburse us for taxable land we've lost because of the dam, which prevents flooding in Massachusetts as part of the Merrimack River area. Other than that, as far as revenue, we seem to be running exactly where we should be at this point. So I don't know if there are questions on that.
Is there a particular month that we get the flood control money?
It seems like that usually comes late summer
For the whole year?
for the whole year. It's one chunk from the state.
And so
My guess
this,
is it's probably in the new fiscal year, after July 1.
so under percent collected, and I think I know this, but I'm just asking you anyway, for my edification about if we're over or under, I look at the top and it says that we should be roughly at 16 2/3. And so if it's above that, we're ahead. And if it's below that, we're behind, except with caveats.
That's it.
Yeah.
And generally, it's the caveats we talk about. So that's revenue. We do try to watch like motor vehicle, because that's much more consistent, and that's a fairly $1.3 million. That's fairly a substantial amount to watch where that's running. I'm a fan of budgeting revenues conservatively because we estimate for town meeting what the tax rate will be. And nobody's going to complain if our revenues are up and we can adjust those. And the tax rate's lower, but we don't want to get caught in the year, halfway through the year, and realize we're not going to receive revenue. Like if we all of a sudden get less room and meals, we've got to figure that out. So we've entered the form you signed tonight, sends all this information to DRA. For September 1, we can do an estimated revenue amount, which is what's used for tax rate setting. So that's reviewed then to finalize it. So then you at least have 8 months or close to 8 months of revenue to look at. Expenses, IT, I mean, I said this all last year, we're running way over. So the fact that they are no longer servicing Windows 10, Windows 9, whatever Windows we had to upgrade more machines than we expected. So that's why we're running behind there. Reval of property looks like it's running ahead, but if you look at the detail, we have already paid for the Avatar software for the entire year, as well as the online assessing cards we've paid for the whole year. And those are both through Avatar. Advertising in regional associations, we're members of Central New Hampshire Regional Plating Commission, and we've paid our dues for the year there also. Welfare seems to be running high. That's not unusual for the beginning part of the year because we're still dealing with cold and all of that. Generally during the summer, that number goes down and we balance out. And bonds always seem to be largely a timing thing. We're going to spend the exact amount that was budgeted for bonds because we know what those payments are, but we've clearly paid, well, 72, almost 73% of the principal that's due and 54% of the interest, but that will balance out through the year, but that's why those are running high. Other than that, expenses look pretty much on. Of course, up until now, we had no budget, so we are pretty much doing status quo anyways.
So the bond payments are sort of front loaded.
Yes, it appears, I think a bunch of these are due in January. That's the way they're set up.
But it'll settle as the year.
But it will settle. It won't go over budget. So I think it probably gets paid twice a year.
If it's a bond bank one, it's twice a
It's
year.
twice a year, like January and
I think it's February, August.
February, August.
Yep.
That makes sense. Any questions on that? You'll find we talk budget enough between now and the end of the year that you'll learn these things inside and out by the time you get there.
Is that true, Ken?
And Vicky, Ken always had a little list of questions. Oh, yeah. Can we let Jeff back in?
Yep.
We have to vote again? He's just.
I think he's
voting.
still in,
He's still
yeah.
all right, good. Jeff, we assigned every committee to you, just so you know.
Oh, he left. Oh, there he is.
All right. Jeff, we have you sticking with planning board and waste reduction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who's taking the budget?
Vicky.
Congratulations, Vicky.
Thank you.
Any other questions on
Was it Jeff had any budget?
Jeff, any questions on financials?
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to orientation / updates.
Yeah, I just put this down. I have a few notes that I thought were worth mentioning. But to update on anything that's going on, if there are specific things.
I've in sitting through this meeting and hearing the really good questions that Vicky and Alyssa are asking. Do we have any money in the budget for the NHMA annual conference?
We do, and Alyssa's signed up already.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, for the,
April 24th.
yep.
Good.
So that is well worth going to. They basically go through knowing the territory, and you get a copy of this. This has kind of everything in it. Seems like there should be one since 2019, but
Yeah,
maybe it's, but I go to this a lot. For one thing, it lists the statutes, and sometimes it's the easiest way to find the statute you're
helpful.
looking for.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would note, which I'll make electronically available too, a hard road to travel
Mhm.
has everything on roads. You can kind of.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Now and again. But I also have the electronic copy. That's the updated one. This is getting older, but this is really helpful. Select Board has a lot of authority on roads, and this covers liability and development and maintenance and classes. There are town maintained roads are class 5 roads, and unmaintained town roads are class 6 roads. And
This is great because my 5-year-old was quizzing me on our dirt road today and he wanted like actual information I did not have. And he did not accept my explanation.
so it's a gravel road, and it is a class 5 town maintained road.
I mean, I was mistaken. I said class 6, so I need to go back and correct that to him because that's where we got to in the
The
conversation.
town cannot maintain class 6 roads.
That's right.
There's no
It's
gravel. on that
bizarre.
road.
By the law, we cannot maintain class 6 roads, but if we do, they become class 5. I've never quite understood that, but
It
that's,
is.
By
we
osmosis.
don't.
bizarre,
Okay.
the way the statutes are all written and interact. Yeah.
Sorry, and you said you have a digital copy of that book, but I'm assuming that book can be found out in the world for purchase?
So
or-
it can be found, if you go to the NHMA, I think it's nhma.org, actually, but if you Google New Hampshire Municipal Association, there is an area which has all sorts of reference books. Often they go with workshops. They hold workshops quite often on hard road to travel. There's a budgeting workshop generally once a year, which has all the budgeting stuff. So, and we do have a budget. If you see books that are helpful, we're always happy to get those, and most of them come electronically now, which is helpful. So like Hard Road is electronic.
And just to bring it full circle, there is that really good Knowing the Territory conference in April, which you already signed up for.
Mhm.
There's also one in November, which has all kinds of sessions that you can choose which ones you want to attend. And assuming we have room in the budget for it, there's all kinds of stuff you can attend over that 2-day conference, which can be really, really informative.
And that's always in Manchester at the center of New Hampshire.
Yep.
Or whatever
Yep.
it's called
And you
now.
can stop by and say hi, because I'm usually there.
And there's a big fair with lots of vendors and
Yes.
stuff. It's
Oh, gosh.
it's really, you get a lot of information there.
And while this is all obviously specific to New Hampshire, I was curious, are we, and this might be an EDC thing, but are we members of Main Street America, which I think is through Amex, but it's their like grant department that gives to small businesses in rural towns, and then also provides training for how to basically get additional grant money. And I was wondering if we were members of that.
I don't know.
We are not members of Main Street, although I know EDC has looked at that, and I can't remember. I can't remember exactly why
I was just
we
curious.
weren't.
I don't recall. I'm sorry. Yeah.
There, I have a few notes that, so before I came, department heads were given instructions by lots of different select board members at lots of different times, which didn't always match each other. That had kind of been solved before I came, hopefully, but especially transition out, I think sort of my understanding of the role is important to make sure you all agree with that. So, basically, I think the board, which has been really good at it, recognizes the administrative chain of command, and you don't act on complaints as an individual outside of the administration. Never publicly criticize an employee. If we need to discuss employee things, we can do that and go into non-public session under 91A. That's one of the reasons. Except for the purposes of inquiries deal with town officers and employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the town administrator solely through the town administrator. Not give orders to any employees, either publicly or privately. Do direct questions of the staff to the town administrator or department heads. And if you do go through the department heads, just CC the town administrator on that. And I remember being told way back, one select board member has no authority. It takes the whole board to do any action. So that's when I became a select board member many, many moons ago. Those are sort of I think the board has been really, I think we've had a really good way of doing things, and there has not been any issues, which is really nice.
Mhm. And we don't really, we don't discuss things via email. But sometimes, like, for example, I got a few emails directed towards me, and if I want them distributed to the board, I send them to Neil and he'll send them to the full board. And part of that is just, it's good process. And then there's also 91A. So anytime there's 3 members together or talking or, emailing, it's technically subject to, I think I'm oversimplifying a bit, but in general, we don't discuss board matters.
Right, because it's
If
a meeting.
It's an illegal meeting.
Yeah.
But like, we can all be at Colonial at the same
Right,
time, we
right.
just can't talk about the select board, right? Like,
That is cool.
just making sure.
What if I invite you all to my birthday party?
Can't discuss town issues.
Okay.
Talk about the birthday party.
Yes, your birthday is a town issue. And that's why everything that comes out from here is always done blind CC. So that then there's no opportunity for any board member to
Accidentally
reply all
Yeah,
by
exactly,
mistake. So
Um,
that's
The last couple days, I started to get the initial emails that come in to the website.
Ah,
And
yes.
then we
Yeah.
started talking about them, or we referenced them tonight. And so I wanted to double check, what is our responsibility? Obviously, read them. But I got the sense here at the meeting tonight that we don't reply to them.
you sometimes do. So it will come in, they will not have, anybody who uses the website, you'll get that contact form. They will not have your email. So if you want to respond, they would have your email. Although Jeff has a town email. So if people would like town emails,
I mean, my personal is out there. I'm fine with that. Like,
Yeah.
that's cool with me. But I guess what I was trying to figure out is, did we all get the same emails? Did they come?
Form, it goes to all of us, right?
not necessarily, because your names are all listed and they may click on your individual name.
Oh, they can check though.
They can, is that how it will,
I think so.
and who it goes to, so.
I didn't see a way to tell if it came just to me or to everyone, because
Yeah.
I have like a thing about making sure I reply to
Yes.
everyone, even if it's late, like everyone gets a response, even if it's like, I'm so sorry, this is like 30 days late. And so I was trying to figure out
Yes, so
whether it came to me or to everyone, or what I should do with it so that I didn't leave people hanging.
yes, and I also try my best to reply to people in a timely manner. And I think process wise, it makes sense. It's sort of, obviously you can read the situation, but I think if you would like to reply and you think it's something we will be discussing as a board, you could say like acknowledging receipt, but then forward it to Neil / whoever the administrator is and distribute to the rest of the board. Sometimes we've had situations where like I have sent an email to Neil and said, please circulate and let the board know that I'm going to reply, so that we're not having different people emailing different, times. So to the extent we're able, I think it's best to streamline usually via Neil, and then one of us can clarify if, or I've responded, or there are times when people will just respond if it makes sense. It's not like you can't, but we don't, it's best to like avoid situations where you're having a side conversation with someone and the rest of us aren't clued in.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how I can tell if this person just emailed me. And if I get an email, do you also get the notice, Neil? So I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I
I
know?
don't think you do.
I don't
See,
think
this
there's a
is
way.
a black box that I don't know what to do with. Do I just forward it to Neil and be like, did everyone get this?
You could, or you could say.
A whole bunch of them.
Oh, you can read to
Did you all get a whole?
We got a couple.
several
Yeah.
forms, but I didn't get 3. I thought that we all got, if you hit the form that went to everyone, so I was mistaken.
Yeah, but your names are all listed and you can click on the individual
Yeah.
name
Gonna send
And
a
it-
test one.
Oh,
and
okay.
then
But perhaps to cover all of our bases, best to send them to Neil and say, FYI, maybe send to the other board members.
Cool. I will cross-check my inbox with the ones in the packet, and if those are already taken care of, I will archive them, and the ones that are not, I will forward on to Neil for future
Yeah, so
conversation.
Oh, is that? it?
Yeah,
Click
I
on that.
believe so.
can you click on the names?
And it's contact Stephen Woodling.
That's gonna go just to me though,
Yep.
Well, that's what we think. You could test it,
You could, I will.
but that's good to know, because I was assuming that the form went to everyone. Other things, Neil, that you wanted to share?
I will keep trying and it sort of tried to explain things as we went through them tonight. We'll keep trying to put things together.
Okay.
All the ordinances and policies are online. That's probably the easiest way to access those. And agreements, there may be a few things. Kelly will be reaching out to you for I-9s and W-4s, so you can get paid in November. You don't get paid till November, so. um, Trying to think what else. Don't be afraid to just call or email with any questions anytime.
If you call too many times, he starts answering Riverside Pizza. Just a heads up. I want to make sure that as someone who's still figuring out what everyone actually does and not just what I assume they do, is there a way to go read job descriptions or understand more so that I can then give the like appropriate understanding to people's roles and not make any assumptions about what someone is doing versus what I don't want to make those assumptions and stick my foot in my mouth and somehow decredit or not value someone's work because I didn't understand their job.
So the next item is department visits. And what we've
Oh.
done in the past is scheduled the time to go out and tour the department, meet with the department head, and it's really a conversation where they can talk about the things they do. You can see in the police department that when people call, because people are speeding on the road, they have a list of roads that they're paying particular attention to or things like that, which is, I think, really helpful and sort of gives a whole sense standing next to the grader and just to see what the departments do because they're the best to tell you what they really do.
And just to circle back, I did just receive the test email that I sent.
I'm gonna see if I got it.
So if other people also got it, I think that would answer
Yeah,
that question.
I do not have an email.
I don't either.
Okay.
no, all right,
Okay.
good to know.
So I think then if we're all getting emails that seem similar, someone manually sent them to each of us with probably copying, pasting, I'm assuming, but still, that's a lot of steps.
Impressive.
That's a lot of steps.
Great that
Yep.
they took the time to do that. I don't know, I don't necessarily, and I would like to eventually understand the platform that the website is on and how it works, because it'd be super cool if someone could just send something to all of us
I was just thinking that if we could set that up,
An
Yeah.
email address, yeah.
so that they don't, so that someone who is a Hopkinton resident doesn't have to spend that time to get their message out there.
I
They shouldn't
agree.
have to spend.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good idea.
I mean, kudos. That's awesome.
Mhm.
And I want them to have that back.
So department visits? Or do you, I know you just mentioned it, but are we gonna try to pin those down?
hopefully.
So
I think they're really beneficial
they are.
for you to meet the department heads, but for the department heads to meet all of you one-on-one.
As a group, do we go individually?
Publicly noticed meeting, we go as a
Cool.
group. And we did it, gosh, I think it was like at least 3 years ago. It was right after COVID.
I think
maybe?
that's right.
Yeah, I think we've done it once since.
And, it's on like a rolling. And it's often like in the morning. So it's the rare time, Vicky, on the meeting workload
Oh,
that
that's
we
right.
do try to
Another outlier.
find a time that works for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a tally.
Yeah. We're getting closer to 50, aren't we?
They're usually quick. It's usually what, half hour,
Yeah.
45 minutes in the morning.
Yeah. It's a good way to connect with department heads and get a better understanding of what they do. So Neil, will you?
I think you just
start
need to
figure
figure out
dates, or what's our,
times, because I think
Mhm.
once you kind of set a time, I think last time you said, okay, we're going to do it
like Friday?
Thursday morning at
Yeah.
8 AM on the week that you don't meet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
we
right.
could do that.
So if I have something like that, I can schedule,
Okay.
then schedule.
So we do police, fire,
DPW.
DPW,
W,
recreation,
library,
library.
transfer station,
Oh, yeah. Station.
town hall.
Mhm.
And when we do town hall, do we try to meet with all the departments that are here? How many are, there's 3, 4,
There is
5? If you say
1,
20.
2, 3 or 4. How many are there?
I mean, finance, clerk, planning,
Assessing,
assessing,
that's it.
there's you.
You don't meet with
Oh, why
me
not?
because you see me all the time.
So is there can we try to land on a weekday morning that generally works for people?
I have
Or the film.
flexibility, Monday through Friday. My preference is after 8 a.m. and before 11 a.m. because those are the Harold Martin preschool hours. So
Between-
outside of that, I have a lot of flexibility.
Wait, between 8 and 11 is bad or good?
Good.
Good.
Good, because the town of Hopkinton is taking care of my
Yeah,
child.
okay,
I also like the 8 a.m.
yeah.
time, so I would be in favor of that.
I will say I have standing meetings on Mondays and Thursdays that make it very difficult for me to do those mornings. I could potentially make them work, but
We do Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
8 a.m.?
What about for the departments? Do you think they're?
Think probably there's no time, as long as I know and can schedule that.
But also if any of them come back and there's like one that's like, I just can't do that time,
We
we
can
can find a
find
special
it.
time.
Yeah,
Vicky, I know that you work in the morning. What time could you meet that would still give you time to do your AM job?
I mean, I think 8 a.m. if they're an hour-long meeting is totally fine,
Okay, cool.
doable.
Like 8:10.
Sure, 8:10 to
Like
9:10.
after, so you do school drop off, like you're like 8 a.m., but like you're literally talking your children out of the car at 8 a.m.
we've often done 8:10 because I think school drop offs and then
That's a very common schedule.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Not
are
for
there
me.
any mornings that are like particularly, I know you've got your work travel and stuff, but any mornings that are like out of the question?
Nope, I can do Wednesday, I can do Tuesday.
Okay, so maybe,
I-
if we can avoid Monday and Thursday.
for the weeks when I'm here, I have Rotary Wednesday morning.
Oh.
So
So maybe
So Tuesday
Tuesday or Friday,
Fridays.
Tuesday or Friday, maybe?
I am not opposed to getting them done quickly
Mhm.
while you are still here.
Mhm.
I don't,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
personally don't feel the need to be like every other week on non-meeting weeks. I'm like, no, let's
Yeah, I
just
think
slam
we should
through this
probably
and
get-
get them done.
Yeah.
8:10 every Tuesday.
Tuesday, Friday, go.
Tuesday, Friday.
Because I agree, I think it'll be very helpful to do this if we can, at least some of them will Neil's here.
Yes,
So. See what we can do.
but also just like rip the Band-Aid off and get them.
so next Tuesday, 8:10,
Mhm.
Yeah,
one of the department head.
I have a board commitment on some Tuesdays, but I've actually done these tours. And so if there's some that I just can't make,
Mhm.
I'll either circle back. But don't schedule around me.
Same, yeah.
Okay, so I'll schedule them for every Tuesday beginning next week, even the weeks you meet.
I think so.
Got it.
Yep, that's fine.
And if we need to throw a Friday morning in,
Friday could be
Yes, I'm
alternative.
thinking for the transfer station, they're not there on Tuesdays.
right?
Okay, yes, so that'll be
Yeah.
a Friday.
So that would be a Friday. Friday's actually a good morning because they're not open.
I think what I'm hearing is that for the most part, folks are okay doing it twice a week. Because then there's a total of 10 departments. It would be done in 5 weeks versus,
Less than that. How many did we list?
At least our.
I think.
Library, transfer
Seven.
station, town hall. Yeah, I mean, town hall has several within it, but town hall's one.
I also got 7.
So Tuesday, Friday?
Tuesday,
Yeah.
Friday. Just putting it on the calendar.
And we'll start Tuesday.
All right, so we have to.
Tomorrow,
we have
Tuesday?
to-
No.
Next week.
Next week. I'll let the
Clarify,
check
yeah.
and see.
How far is it a week? We have to notice public meetings?
24 hours.
24 hours, oh. Oh, wow.
So we don't make tomorrow, but we could.
Yeah, we couldn't. All right,
Great. I think departments really appreciate that.
It's a cool thing to do.
We'll see who needs the most time to clean. No, that would be me.
it's public hearings we have to give a week, right? What
Yeah.
why are, okay. So say we're
7
like a
days
week
or
if
sometimes
we
10
okay.
days or.
All right, so next we have town administrator update.
You probably saw the email from Hopkinton Solar, which is the solar company. Ken will be interested in this too. Is the solar company that was going to do solar at the transfer station. They are not. They are going to pay their $20,000 amount they were due to pay to have that option. So we will get that, but then everything will be done. So there's no more. They are not moving forward. A lot of what they had was interconnection issues with Eversource, and they've just decided to totally pull the plug on that. So that they called, I think, Thursday. So that was a major thing.
It's disappointing.
We already talked about transition, and we already talked about the local officials workshop, which is April 24th and June 5th. I think we've kind of talked about everything else on my list.
Okay. All right, that brings us to our public forum. So if anyone in our audience would like to speak, you can, or put up your hand. Yes, I see Ken has his
Should I
hand
let
up.
Ken talk?
I feel like,
I think we have to.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
I will be brief. It's a very different perspective, and I wish everybody luck. Vicky, I'd be willing to, sit down and help you with the budget if you
Thanks,
need
Ken.
me. And Stephen, I can sit down with you to let you know where the Energy Committee's at. Our next meeting is not until May, and Neil, it was disappointing but not surprising to hear about the solar at the transfer station. But I guess that's it, and carry on, and great questions from the newbies.
Thanks, Ken.
Ken. You guys want to talk?
I do have a couple brief comments, questions.
Catherine Mitchell. So my first one is about pay by bag and its demise, which obviously disappoints me. I'm just wondering at this point, given the possibility that contractors that pick up trash and are currently taking it out of town, that started when pay by bag was instituted, that depending upon what contracts they may have, they may at some point be coming back and bringing that stuff to our transfer station. And given the problem with trash and landfill space and everything in the state and just doing the right thing as far as producing less trash, I'm wondering if this board has plans to try to come up with an alternative, or if that would be the purview of the Waste Reduction Committee, coming up with something and then coming before the board. I'm just wondering what the status will be to try to do something to reduce the trash that we produce in this.
Yeah, may I ask a clarifying question just
Sure.
to make sure I understand?
Sure.
You're just talking about, not you're just, the carriers who aren't currently bringing trash to our location. You're asking if there's a plan to not have them bring trash or to have them bring less trash, or?
No. I was talking about the ones that do not bring the trash to our transfer station, but to out of town facilities.
So there's always, just to be clear, there's always been one hauler that has brought to our transfer station,
Right.
and that remains. Different,
Right.
other people own that, but the ones, people did jump to out of town haulers when the pay by bag went. So they would have to, I guess your question is, are they going to jump back to the other hauler that brings to our station?
Well, yeah, when pay by bag was instituted, any haulers who brought trash to the transfer station, non-commercial, but residential trash, had to pick it up in the green bags. So some other haulers went into business to say, well, we'll pick it up and you don't need to use the green bags. They were not allowed to use our transfer station. They had to go out of town. So I'm thinking now, some of them may choose to come back because it may be a shorter drive. Maybe some of them have contracts where they are now, but when those expire, maybe they'll come back. So I just anticipate possibility of an increase in probably a significant increase in the amount of trash. I don't know what percentage of the trash is taken out of the town versus brought by local haulers or residents themselves. I'm not sure we've ever come up with that number. Do you have a estimate, Neil?
It was in the presentation at town meeting.
Oh,
I have it in front of me,
missed
but I
that.
know we do have that. It seems to me like I better not guess.
Well, I was gonna ask if and this is a Neil question, for a carrier to bring trash to our transfer station, they then pay a fee, correct? And I don't want to make the assumption, but my question is, would a commercial carrier pay a higher fee than a residential individual? Like, is the amount they are paying to use it higher than what we are paying as taxpayers to run the transfer station if you break it down by household?
Yes, the amount is more than what we pay to dispose of it. I don't think it covers necessarily all the costs associated with the transfer station around that, but that was raised quite a bit last year.
And none of these carriers provide recycling services in addition to their trash services.
And only one carrier's ever come to our transfer station. It wouldn't be that they would be coming back. They still come. So
Yeah. I think what she's saying is like other businesses have popped up in town around the idea of providing this convenience. They didn't exist beforehand. I have that. And now that
Correct.
the reason for their existence has more or less gone away, but they still have a customer base, might they start paying the fees at our transfer station instead, thus raising the percentage of trash in comparison to recycling? And I would wonder if there are things we could explore to encourage them, incentivize providing recycling services. Because if they're providing recycling services alongside their trash services, and by recycling services, I mean bringing recycling and appropriately recycling it at our transfer station, that might help mitigate that problem versus it just being everything heads into the trash and then that trash goes in the hopper.
Right.
I have no idea, but I'm wondering if that's a lever that's ever been explored that we could pull.
I mean, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, for me, I think that is a great question, and I would be curious to know what the Waste Reduction Committee, what their suggestions would be to bring to this board. And then that would be, I think, the starting point to
Right.
see what options there may be out there.
And the one carrier that we do that is in town at one point did do recycling. When this first
I
started.
think his
but-
predecessor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while. So
Yeah.
I think the businesses that just to be clear, that took over more of the trash were existing out of town businesses. And I would not anticipate them all of a sudden wanting to dump at our transfer station. I think probably we're going to keep the one we have, but they may pick up business
Yeah.
if they're picking up more non-green bag.
And to answer your question about incentivizing them to pick up recycling, that had proved to be pretty challenging because we don't do single stream. And I remember when our hauler was picking up recycling, it was put some here, hang a bag from the truck. I mean, you had to separate a lot of different things. So that doesn't seem feasible without single stream.
Never say never, but I think it is, to what Stephen said, worth exploring through the Waste Reduction Committee, incentivizing. And
Right.
because maybe the things that work commercially might also translate to residential incentives. Because you know this, every piece that we throw away, it's like we're paying for it twice. We bought it at the store and then we paid to throw it away through our taxes. So I'm with you where it feels a little silly. I think the other thing is we can just watch to see if we're getting feedback that additional haulers have come. So it's something where I think the committee might be great in creating a preemptive idea so that if the problem comes to fruition, we have a plan versus scrambling for a plan.
Right.
I know the market varies in terms of the desirability of our recycling. But offhand, is there any materials that are best in terms of the return on investment of going through the labor of making sure they're prepared properly?
Um,
I don't know.
every time we've studied, for example, single stream that wouldn't prepare them the same way, the revenue is like significantly.
Well,
lower.
I think what Vicky
So-
was saying is if we were to propose, if the waste reduction committee were to propose to put a plan forward, it's like, hey, commercial haulers, you can't do everything, but if you do scrap metal, it's gonna make the town a bunch of money, right? Like if there's a point in our recycling stream, so it's not single stream, but it is maximizing the revenue for the town while not putting arduous rules around things that there is no market for at the moment in recycling, and it's going to end up in the hopper anyways, right? Because the plastics market has fallen out,
Yeah.
but glass, metal, and certain other ones are still doing. I'm not gonna speak for what the town is getting. I'll speak for like the global market is going well.
Certainly metal, aluminum, Some of
Okay, aluminum.
All of your
uh,
cat food.
plastics are not
Cardboard.
good, and they're up and down, and they're because they're also different.
Mhm.
NRA may have that information on their website in terms of what the current market is for some of those recyclable materials.
Mhm.
I don't know, but they also would be a good resource to just see what the market is like for some of those.
And I would suggest looking not just at the income that we would get from the recyclables or what's, most desirable right now, but also the environmental importance. Aluminum, you save about 95% of the energy if you recycle it than if it's being extracted and produced anew, so.
Mhm.
And what I love about facts about like that is it's all these different facts that will motivate different people, right? Some people will be motivated by the money for the town, some will be motivated by the environmental savings. And so lining all that up
Mhm.
motivates a wider variety of people to take that action.
Absolutely.
And everything that doesn't go in the hopper is $93 a ton
Woo,
that you're saving.
love it.
It's right there. Without making any money, you're saving money.
Thank you for
Which
bringing
for
it.
some people is the thing they would look at.
My second question has to do with class 6 roads. Neil and I had a conversation about a week ago. I had a lot of questions and you were very helpful, but I'm still confused. So, Stephen, you might be able to help clarify this. I kind of missed one of the slides during town meeting, but I seem to recall a statement that the petitioned warrant article, if it had passed, or whether it passed or not, would not affect changing a class 6 road to a class 5 road. So in past meetings, my recollection from 2 applicants who wanted to change from class 6 to class 5 was that they were told there were 2 options: go to town meeting and have the townspeople vote to reclassify the road, or do a layout petition.
Yeah.
But then more recently, you mentioned
Another
a
one.
third option, which surprised me. And I think I still don't understand that. What confused me when we were talking, Neil, and you were clear, but I'm still a little confused because it seemed as though what you were saying was that the townspeople can vote to reclassify, to upgrade a class 6 road, but it can also be called a new road by the planning board, even though it's not actually a new road, which to me seems like a linguistic loophole. But were you saying that if someone goes before the planning board wanting to upgrade to a class 5 road from 6, they can then accept it, calling it a new road, and then it comes to the select board to dedicate?
Partially, yes, that's right. I think you have it right. And the distinction is the planning board process. If you go to the planning board and you say to them, I want to subdivide some lots, and the new lots are going to be accessed via this road that's on this plan right here, and the planning board approves it, that's the dedication to make it a public road, and to accept it. This board can then accept that road, converting it from class 6 to class 5. And
Okay.
we can do that because a prior town meeting voted to delegate that authority to the select board to accept roads that are shown on a plan that was approved by the planning board. The other two instances that you recall were different. Those were not, as I remember, projects going before the planning board with a new road. Those were people saying there's an existing road with existing lots and we want to convert it from class 6 to class 5. And that you can do a petition to this select board, or again, you can take that directly to the annual meeting to have the voters convert it from class 6 to class 5.
Okay. So I think I got the dedication and acceptance backwards on the two boards, so you clarified that. But it still seems to me as though if we say that to upgrade a class 6 road to class 5, it goes before the town meeting. But there's a way around that, which is to simply allow the planning board to basically call it a new road. It seems like a bit of a loophole.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand.
And I think the way that I think about it is that if the planning board is going to approve the plan with this new road on it, as part of their process, they ought to be looking at, is the road up to a certain standard and is it sufficient? You know, is it wide enough? Is it the base sturdy enough? Those sorts of things. And so if the planning board has already done that process and approved it, then there's far less for us, for this board to sort of consider, because they are the ones that should be looking into that when they grant planning board approval.
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So this can happen even if there's other houses already on that road without their input or being notified by the planning board that their road is being considered for a change, or?
Potentially, I mean, if it's an existing house and it's not very close to the new development, then they may not be abutters, and so they may not get like letter notice. But there would still be, you know, agenda notice and just sort of rumblings in the neighborhood about it.
And I assume that people who live on that road who were not part of the request to reclassify it could go to the planning board meeting and participate in the process?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're saying that what Catherine brought up in terms of this third way is triggered when there's a subdivision?
Yes, yes. Subdivision approval.
So
I
it
still
can't just come
find
out of nowhere. There has to be something else already happening. You can't just have like someone
Yeah.
go and be like, I'd like to redeclare this road.
I mean, the road stuff is really nuanced and it's hard to get.
The book.
Yeah. It's hard to give, very bright line answers to all these questions.
Thank you for trying.
Generally, there's only a handful of ways you can create a public road.
Mhm.
One is that the town owns the land and says, we're gonna make this a public road. Another one is basically adverse possession. So 20 years of continuous adverse use by the public creates a public road. Another one is dedication and acceptance. That's what Catherine was just talking about. And in the context of the planning board, you go to the planning board, you get planning board approval. That's the dedication part of it. It's still not a public road until you get the acceptance part as well. That's what this body would do. And then the last one is anyone can file a petition with this board to lay out a new road. And it layout can be converting an existing road to a public road, to a class 5 road. So those are all the ways that, generally speaking, you know, you can make a class 5 road that we would have an obligation to maintain going forward.
Thank you.
I still find it perplexing. I understand if someone has a piece of land and they want to do a subdivision and they are building a new road in it, a road that never existed, that the planning board can then accept, or am I getting it backwards again? I keep wanting to do it the other way,
The property owner that's dedicated.
dedicating it.
Yeah.
So that's then called a new road once it's accepted by the
Yes.
select board. But I don't understand how we have an existing road that's a class 6 road. And then the planning board can say they're dedicating a new road because it's not a new road. It's changing from class 6 to class 5.
And I think that what happens is that if you have that existing road, if you're gonna create 5 new buildable lots on that existing road, then, and the planning board has to approve that subdivision, then you can have that existing road become a new public road that the town would have to maintain if it gets planning board approval first and then comes before us for acceptance. And again, it's the planning board approval part, because arguably the planning board can say to the developer, there's this existing road here, but you want to create 10 more lots where right now there's 1. So that's going to be a huge impact on the existing road. So we want you to bring this existing road up to our town standards. And that's probably going to cost a truckload of money because it's expensive to build roads. And if they do that, and the planning board approves it, and it comes to this board, I mean, they've probably checked all the boxes that we would be concerned about if we were going to convert it to a road, in the petition process, which is the one where you do a layout. Because the planning board sort of does all that sort of work already, and if the developer couldn't satisfy the planning board that the road was going to be sufficient, then hopefully the planning board is not approving that subdivision. And if they don't get that planning board approval, then that third option is not available.
So it's not always up to the townspeople to vote to reclassify.
No, it's not.
It can
No, it's not.
be
It's
done by the planning board.
one summary you can absolutely take away that in certain circumstances, doesn't go to town meeting. Yeah.
So what would have happened if that petition warrant article had passed?
The select board would no longer be able to convert planning board approved roads into public roads.
Right.
And that acceptance piece would have had to go before town meeting instead.
Right. So I thought I heard that it wouldn't matter changing a class 6 road to a class 5, whether the petitioned warrant article had passed or not, but it sounds as though it does because there's that process to go to the planning board and have them change it.
I think what Thomas was trying to say is that even if that petition article had passed, there were still ways for this body, the select board, to convert roads from class 6 to class 5. It wouldn't have done away with all of the mechanisms by which the select board could vote to create a class 5 public road.
It would not exactly have been the same though,
No.
either way. Because that was kind of what I thought I heard. And that confused me because, well, anyway, I think you've clarified it. So
I hope so. I hope so.
yeah, you did. Thank you.
Can I ask you a clarifying question?
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody wants to build a cul-de-sac on their property. And for one reason or another, the planning board is not prepared to accept the dedicated road.
Mhm.
Would that cul-de-sac end up being some sort of a homeowners association where they then are responsible for maintaining their road? Or like what would happen at that point?
Usually, yeah, the developer, needs to have something in place so that there's maintenance of that non-public road before the town accepts it to make it an obligation the town has to maintain. And it's usually a homeowners association. Sometimes the road itself is a separate parcel, and so the developer hangs on to it, figures out some other way to maintain it. But yeah, there ought to be some mechanism where you make sure that the road is being maintained to a certain level. Because if you're going to have houses out there with people living in them, you hope to make the road safe so that emergency vehicles can get there,
Right.
you know, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Actually discussed this at the planning board this week. And the town does not accept private roads anymore.
There you go.
Okay, is that just a matter of
That's the,
habit, or is it, do we write that down somewhere that we do not
I
accept?
believe that's a written policy.
I think it's in the subdivision regulations, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. So most of our roads, we do not own, we only have the right of way. So the property owner actually owns to the middle of the right of way.
Really?
Yes.
Yep.
So when there's a tree, people often call us and say, your tree is going to fall, please take it down. And although we do have some liability, it's their tree. So they can take it down. And we do have scenic roads, which means in order for us to cut down a tree on a scenic road, you have to have a public hearing. But a property owner can always take down their trees without a public hearing. Just because I wanted to confuse you even.
Interesting. So the McDivotts and I own the road.
The middle,
Center line.
center line. Yes.
Subject to an easement, right?
Roads up.
Oh, so there you go.
This is-
So,
Yeah, but it's state has a right of way that I don't think the state owns the
Oh.
land under it.
Interesting.
It's like a
Okay.
bundle of sticks and the state has two of them on top and you own the rest underneath.
So the deer carcass on 103 a few months ago is actually on.
Congratulations.
Except for Amesbury, where, for example, we own, that's a deeded road, which gives us more responsibility for the trees which really are on our land.
How did that? We don't need to get into that. Interesting. So many interesting facts about roads. Anyone else online? Now's your chance.
That's why this is so thick.
bundle of sticks. I like your your metaphor.
Thank you to everyone who listened in and attended. We appreciate it. Okay. So anything for other?
Yeah.
Sorry, you go first.
No, well, you go first. My other is the slum.
Let me go first. If I want. This, I should have brought this up at annual meeting follow-up. I think that we should think about whether at future business sessions, we want legal counsel present. And I say that because, you know, and I do this for a living, but I mean, if you sit there for a while and there's really nothing contentious on the warrant, then, you know, it's a cost saving measure. And I suppose the flip side of that is unexpected things can happen. And when they do, it is really nice to have legal counsel present. But hopefully we have some sense about what could be contentious or tricky because we'll know what the warrant is going to be. And so that's just something to flag for future
Yeah.
meetings.
I think part of my concern is, like it came up around an issue that I don't think we thought was contentious or tricky, but then it was around like, you know, someone attempting to make an amendment of whether or not they could do that.
Yep.
Have we ever not had counsel in your time here?
We have always,
We don't.
I don't think,
Oh, no.
actually, I
Not a
think,
now decision at
I
all.
think when Gary Richardson was the moderator, actually our council, like my first year, the council was, they were council. We didn't, but after that we have.
Yeah.
And I would add that I would only do that if the moderator was comfortable
Yeah.
with that. And I would
Yeah.
definitely want to get Sarah's input before we made that
Yeah.
decision. If
Okay.
we were going to actually consider that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
All right.
That's my-
Good. Vicky.
Okay, so I guess I should lead off by asking. Like, if we get, for instance, an email and we think it's worth discussing. Do we just bring it up in other, or do we put it on the agenda for the following meeting?
It's a good question. I can give you my take, but I don't know, Neil, if you would like to answer how.
We'll see if we match.
Yes.
I think you can send it to me or whoever's doing the agenda and put it on. I think anybody
Yeah.
can put something on the agenda.
There are times, like, sometimes it's just too tight.
Yes.
And like, I got an email at like 4:30 today, and it was like, can't necessarily get it on the agenda. But I think people often will bring up those sorts of things under other.
Uh-huh.
But if you want something on the agenda, just have to.
If it's something that requires like information, it's really
Yeah.
helpful to have it on the agenda so that we can gather information and send it out.
When do you prepare the agenda?
Friday morning after the visit to departments. Generally I finalize it on Friday and it goes out then
Mhm.
For the following Monday.
for the following Monday.
Okay.
Probably the new person may want to switch it. We'll see how that to
For now, let's just. keep it the way
Thursday,
you
but
do
this
it.
is the way it is.
But we can make changes to the agenda as needed. And
Mm.
sometimes we have to add a last minute non-public, for example.
Mhm.
So we are able to do that. We try, I will say this, because I have at points received critical feedback if we talked about something under other and it wasn't on the agenda.
Mhm.
And I have noted, we do our best with the agenda. The point is to inform people
Mhm,
and lay it out here. Sometimes it's a logistical issue, sometimes it's a timing issue, and we just can't get it on as its own agenda item.
Legally, we have to say that there's a meeting, the time and the
Mhm.
place. We don't even have to post the agenda. I don't think that's a good thing to do.
Right.
And it's better to have everything on the agenda so people know, but
Okay, great. Okay, so I guess these are in no particular order. Okay, so when we get asked for time, consideration, or funding from a group that was not anticipated when you were budgeting, how do you go about, for instance, deciding whether or not to spend money on something that was unanticipated? Like, for example, and this leads into my next question, but for example, I'm like working on the skate park, right? So what if the skate park wanted to come and say, hey, we've raised this much money, but we need this much more to get us over the finish line. Are you willing to cough up? Like, I'm not saying we would, but I'm saying, how do you consider spending money that wasn't thought of and that is on what you might call discretionary items?
Have we done that before?
I guess I would say for me, I usually want to know, is there room in the budget? Because we're limited with bottom line budget, so it's got to be in there someplace. If there's not room in the budget, it means we're pulling money from some other purpose, which is hard because you'll see that we try to do a really lean budget and only fund what, we really think needs funding. That's probably the two sort of high level answers for me.
And if it's discretionary, I think I'm thinking of not a lot of examples, but I think we typically, unless it's like a very small amount and we can find a place to pull from, we have had to say no to things or said, you need to come
Yep.
back and make this part of the budget process.
Sure,
Yep.
absolutely.
The other option is always a petition warrant article to get it on the warrant, which we may not recommend, or the budget committee may not recommend, but that way it goes to the voters.
the one line under the executive budgets is select board expense, and we've gotten that up to $10,000. And that's kind of the one line that kind of covers things that you vote in, which isn't a lot of money or things that just have to happen. That's really the only line that isn't very specifically already allocated.
Right, where the math has been done precisely.
That's right. Which doesn't mean 6 months in, there might have been changes, hopefully for the good, and there's some flexibility, but
No, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so then dovetailing from that, in my role as, for example, a person who's working on the Friends of the Skate Park, is there is it just like a verbal sort of recusal if I'm feeling uncomfortable, like if they're discussing money for it and I am on that other side of the coin where I would just say, please excuse me from this conversation?
Mhm.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at various points, we've had to recuse ourselves, but
Sorry, are you talking about here in this meeting or in your meeting with the skate park?
No, I'm saying like if I am the treasurer of the Friends of the Skate Park and they're discussing funding the skate park, I would probably not feel comfortable participating in that conversation as a select board member. Just feeling like a bit of a conflict of interest.
You could also be like, there's no money, and I know there's no money, and it's public knowledge that there's no money. I don't think that would be surprising to anyone.
No, but let's say, we hired his replacement, we're saving $25,000. At that point, my brain starts going, what are we gonna do with our $25,000? We can give it back to the taxpayer, we're gonna spend it on the skate park. So like at that point, I will feel like I'm wading into muddy territory when the discussion of the skate park, maybe if they come and sit here, like let's say Krista is asking for money.
Follow your moral compass. You got this.
But it is as simple as you said. You would just say, I think I need to recuse myself, and then you would probably go sit in the audience.
Okay.
It also just reminded me of the West Wing episode where he wants his change back after Donna gets a sandwich and she's like, I don't trust you on how to use it because you won't give the tax money back. We'll talk about it later. That's exactly.
I sent it to Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vicky, I'm the treasurer for the softball league. And when the league came before the select board, I recused myself and I went and sat at that table in front of you and gave testimony, but I didn't vote on anything.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, excuse my phone here. Okay, so are we going to finish Briar Hill?
There was not the money to finish Briar Hill. There is the money to do some more work. And there is definitely money to do the top coat on what's already been done.
right, and we did debate that during the budget process, because I think we talked about possibly doing another bond to finish it. But then ultimately we did not go that route.
A fourth bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought it was a lot
We
of fun.
passed on that.
Am I correct in remember? I mean, we got more done than we thought we would.
We got much further than we expected. I'm thinking we needed another $700,000 to finish all the way to the end. But it definitely, the reason, a little road, so you put your base coat down and then it's good to let it sit over the winter and for a while, but then you really need your top wear coat to protect the work you've done. So that's really important to make sure that gets its top coat. So that money is still there and there is still some bond money remaining to do some work.
Okay, got it. So would some work be just continuing the work that was done or sort of patching the worst bits?
I'm not sure how, that's a good question. That we'll have to get that answer for sure.
Okay.
I think we're trying to avoid patching
Mm-hmm.
areas that have to be rebuilt. So we have some of the shim you've seen throughout town. We've rented a machine and done that ourselves, which is much less expensive than hiring someone to get the roads in good enough shape to plow in the winter, basically.
Okay, great. So one of the constituent emails I received was sort of discussing the vision for George Park. And I was wondering if that could get on the agenda at some point for an upcoming meeting where we sort of talk about the future, what's been planned, what has yet to be accomplished for, a holistic view of the future of that space.
Sure. We'll
Okay.
bring the engineer plans and
Absolutely. Okay, great. Because like from the budget committee perspective, all we ever talked about was the bathrooms.
this other stuff at George Park
Um,
and the things that we've actually done. Phase 1 is complete. So,
mhm.
and the bathrooms, the final plan will come because the intent is to have those done this year.
Okay, great. Okay, so next on my question is, again, a total left-hand turn. Do we have, emergency management plans that I can review?
Yes,
So, do they include natural disasters?
yes.
I would love to read those.
The book's this big, you can, yeah. I probably, you are all part of the emergency management team. If we go, so our command center, our emergency operations center is at the fire station on the
one.
second floor. And that is set up fully generated. We would all be there if there were an emergency.
And the roads are
operate out of there, and the roads are passable. Yes.
Do you have a digital version I can feed into Chat GPT to give me a summary?
Um, I-
Just asking.
I don't think you need to memorize it, certainly, or you just kind of need to know where it is, and you open the section that says propane spill on 89, or you open the section that says whatever. We completed last year a year-long update to our hazard mitigation plan, which talks about all the hazards in town. So actually, that's a good thing for you to at least skim.
I want to skim the whole big one.
Yeah, I'll get that too. That one I don't think I have electronically,
That's okay. I'll come read it.
unfortunately, but before you leave, if I have an extra copy, I'll.
But if you don't have it electronically, what happens if there's like a fire at town hall?
Well, we all have copies.
Got it.
The command center has them, and that hasn't been updated in a longer time. Hazard mitigation is all electronic. We pretty much everything, we have a master file that is on our server, which gets backed up daily with whatever.
You can just call it a
Yes.
zip drive.
As well as we do cloud backup every day too. So we are covered. We also have, we're part of cyber. So employees receive emails that they have to go through, and it's phishing and scam training. So we also are part of that. So because cybersecurity is probably one of the biggest risks right now.
Mhm. Okay, and then so I was reading the minutes from a prior meeting where Jeff was updating about the pricing and logistics of the dump gate, which sounded fascinating. But I would love to hear more about that. So is that something, Jeff, where we could get back on the agenda at some point with more information?
Scheduled to come back up.
before us.
Okay.
We were waiting for the Greenback decision to be made before you get into too deeply.
Okay, perfect. And so then just lastly, and I guess, you know, we all maybe got a couple of messages about it, but our very hot button Article 15 parcel of land off of Clement Hill, I got like a couple of emails about it. So I just wanted to clarify, did we all just say that the article language specified the sale that we were like allowed to sell to an abutter? Is that what it said? And
Yes.
okay. And so the next step is somebody reaches out to the abutters.
That would be me.
Okay. Okay, great. And
And they
the
have to,
assessor is going to give us a fair market valuation of this.
Appraiser.
An appraiser has.
Appraiser,
done-
sorry,
yeah.
appraiser.
Not our assessor, but an
Yes.
appraiser.
Okay, cool.
So, yes, and
And the article
Also-
says we have the authority to sell, not the requirement to sell.
Got it.
the article also specifies it has to be merged with the property. Basically, it eliminates the landlocked piece. It has to be connected to one of those pieces that it abuts.
And are landlocked pieces of land in general just not a comfortable thing? We want lots to be
'Cause-
connected to roads.
Yes,
Because you can't get to it.
they're a huge headache.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And specifically under the sale of tax deeded properties, the statute references landlocked land being sold to an abutter and merged. So there's authority to do that without going through the whole process, which makes perfect sense. And we've done that with several in the last year where they've been merged. And so these landlocked pieces no longer exist.
And something you said earlier was that there's going to be certain easements or certain requirements placed on the sale of it so that the land was not abused is not the correct word, but the word that's coming to mind right now, it was not.
Yeah, you can
Done dirty was the next word that came up in my head, but
put any
whatever, but it would
requirements.
be respected and the intention of why we're selling it would be honored, essentially.
Like the
Yes.
Conservation Commission had, I believe, discussed some deed
Right,
restrictions.
that's
on it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because some of the concerns in the communication we received was about, you know, the wildlife that lives there and maintaining green spaces in town. And so I assume that some of the restrictions would be things like don't put up an apartment complex in this.
Or an oil refinery.
Right.
I don't think they could anyway under our zoning, but yes, that is,
Yeah,
that's the gist.
thank you.
And the reason we own that piece is because it was part of an approved subdivision that was going to put 20-something houses in that area. So the goal was to maintain some green space around these 20 houses, but now that it's one house on that piece, there's a lot more green space than there would have been had the subdivision gone through.
And there, I assume there would have been access to that space somehow.
And the road went past.
Yeah, it's like there was a
There's no
road that
road.
was going to be, got it.
So it wouldn't have been landlocked then.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's my list.
Good
So
questions.
then my last thing is just the email you had, Neil, forward to all of us.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
That came in at like 4:00.
Is this the one about Easter?
I did respond.
Oh,
said
yeah.
that given the short timing, we probably wouldn't be able to
Okay,
tackle that today, but I did say we will put it, you know, on our next agenda.
fantastic, just checking.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for going at a snail's pace for us tonight, guys. Much appreciated.
So you want to walk me through what needs signatures here?
Yeah.
Tab right there.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, we have no non-publics tonight.
Probably next time we will to do updates if nothing else.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so that leaves us with adjournment.
I would move to adjourn.
I'll second that, and it's a roll call vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, Vicky.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, I.
Yeah.
Not I.
Get
Okay.
used to that, yeah.
Steven?
Yes.
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 Okay. We have adjourned. Thank you all for joining us.